This is Kevin Scally. This is from Charity Navigator. And I am reaching out to you over the next couple of days. We're going to have a series of live streams to talk about what's going on in the nonprofit sector and how organizations are innovating and adapting during this time. And today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Craig Kielburger, who's the co-founder of We Charity. Craig, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And Kevin, thanks for taking the time to spotlight charities at this time.
Of course, I really appreciate it. It's good to hear that. And I just want to thank you. I know that I'm sure you have a very busy schedule just with everything that's going on, and then also just really making the mental space to be able to do this. So I think what would be most helpful is, obviously I'm very hyper familiar with We Charity. It's a long-standing 4-star rated charity on Charity Navigator, but it would be great for others to hear a little bit about your story and the history of We Charity.
Well, in fact, this week marks our 25th anniversary of the organization. So it started when I was 12 years old. I read a story about child slavery. I was so upset I wanted to help. And I called other charities and ran into this idea that at the time was too young to make a difference. So we created the organization with the mission of making doing good doable. 25 years, it's grown a fair bit. We now have 3 verticals to our work. The first is all at home. 18,000 schools across America, the UK, Canada run our programs around service learning, getting youth to make a difference on causes. Globally, we're in 9 developing countries, a lot around medical. We have hospitals and clean water projects, 1,500 schools, programs we run. And the final is a social enterprise. We actually earn a lot of the income that funds the charity by empowering women with things like coffee co-ops and alternative income generating programs. And together that creates the We organization, or We Charity.
Very cool. Now, knowing that the current situation has created, a lot of uncertainty, and from what we're seeing is that about 65% of organizations are reporting that there's been some sort of service disruption that folks are seeing. So how is We Charity adapting now, and what are some of the program changes that you've made?
I appreciate the question because, frankly, a lot of people are asking us about the funding disruption, which is a very real reality in the nonprofit world. But you really got to the core of it because it's program evolutions. That's where the charities are both seeing in some ways the greatest strain and the greatest opportunities. So, for example, we have a program that runs in 18,000 schools. So the minute the schools across America shut down, we were inundated by teachers, superintendents, young people, parents. And so we launched a program called We Schools at Home, where we every day, Monday to Friday, this is something available for all the listeners right now, Monday to Friday, free in your inbox, we deliver lesson plans to kids. Plus, every day, Monday to Friday, an hour educational content that's broadcast out via also Facebook Live. 2 days ago, we had people like Joe Jonas, so celebrity guests, or educators like Dr. Stan Kutcher, who's one of the lead authors and thinkers on resiliency. And the whole reason we're doing this is for busy parents who have now suddenly become de facto teacher, or those who are essential services who need to go out and work and who can't necessarily provide the education infrastructure to their kids. So that's a great program. Another one that we've pivoted so quickly on is around youth mental health. We are seeing the need go through the roof. And just like we're flattening the curve on COVID-19, we need to flatten the curve on mental health by early intervention and building self-care and resiliency. So we, for example, teamed up with Selena Gomez. We're doing some amazing content around youth well-being. We have a podcast series we're releasing in a few days with the First Lady of Canada, interviewing people about their self-care rituals, a downloadable guide. All of this content, again, is available free and turnkey. So to answer your question, we found that the need is greater than ever before for these type of programs, and we have to be more entrepreneurial than ever before to make sure it reaches as many people as possible.
Absolutely. I know another interesting thing when I connected with your teammate Diana, she had shared that you're doing some really interesting outreach in developing countries as well, and I just found it incredibly creative, and would love to hear a little bit as to where that idea came from, and of course get the viewers up to speed as to what I'm alluding to.
Well, I appreciate you referencing that because, of course, a lot of our emphasis has been at home, and that's where, rightfully so, people have felt the brunt and stepped up to help. But now that it's starting to ease back a little bit here, we need to open our eyes and open our hearts a little bit more on a global level. And we're seeing the next wave starting to emerge in sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, parts of South and Latin America. And so given that reality, for example, in Kenya, just one region where we have hospitals, we have medical clinics, mobile medical clinics, we have a medical college in that country. And the stats we're looking at are extremely concerning. You can't social distance. There's no $1 trillion bailouts coming from the government. You've got really to focus on three key waves. The first wave is we have people going door to door on public health education. And about a quarter of the people never heard of COVID-19. The second wave is focused on building the body to withstand the viral load. And a lot of that has to be around food security programs to ensure that people have access. And when we talk about food insecurity, I mean literally the risk of starvation in communities around the world. So we're stepping in to prepare the body to be strong enough. And the third is it's the final line of defense, where in our hospitals, we are now converting everything we've got as fast as we can to move tents and increase operations. And our boarding schools are now being used from their dorms, and our colleges are being emptied out so we have the space. But I think especially what you were referring to was we needed to get the message out because not a lot of people had heard about what was forthcoming. So we had team members in full-on medical suits, and they look like hazmat suits, frankly, in our hospitals, go into the middle of the most crowded markets in rural parts of Kenya and come out with megaphones. And you should have seen, like, everyone was like, they looked like, someone had descended from Mars. And they said, let's have a conversation about what social distancing means. The truth of the matter is, North America, as tough as things were here, Gates estimates 10 million lives will be lost in Africa directly because of COVID-19. We're shipping millions of medical supplies. We're doing everything we can, but we know even in our own communities, we're responsible in Kenya for 800,000 lives on the medical front. The need is enormous, but the good part is small amounts make such a massive difference overseas. And so this is really, I think, a test of our common humanity at this point, if we're willing to believe that a life is a human life, no matter where you live.
Yeah, I mean, I think the work that you're doing, absolutely incredible. And I think it's very multifaceted. It's interested taking that kind of at-home approach and also looking at things, from being out in the field perspective and knowing that there are challenges there. Now, Craig, I can't help but notice it looks like you might be working from home. I'd love to hear as to how this has kind of impacted, We Charity specifically, as far as the team dynamic and working from home and what that has kind of looked like for you all.
Again, it ties to our local and our global. When this all broke, we had hundreds of team members and volunteers around the world with us, and about 450 we had to scramble back within short order and empower our local teams in the developing countries to make sure they can continue to run all the projects as they're doing so brilliantly. Here, it's been a transformation of all of our programs. On a personal note, we do these giant events called We Days. This week, this Friday, we're recording this, we're supposed to be live in front of 20,000 youth in California, in LA, to celebrate their service. And instead, we're converting that all to be digital celebrations. So I think everyone is frankly doing their best in the most challenging of circumstances. But what I will say is, for all who are watching, if we're fortunate enough to have an internet connection, we're fortunate for those who are healthy, like God bless, I'm lucky, yourself and myself here. We're fortunate to live in a country where we have transparency, where people share what's going on, and we know. We are so incredibly lucky right now. And in a time like this, we need to look at it. One of our earliest supporters was Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And he said, there's two ways to look at the world. We look at it as all the negativity, or we look at it as God's to-do list delivered to our front door. So we have to pick the second choice. We have to be willing to engage when these challenges emerge. We're a secular organization, but I believe in the truth of those comments, that this is a calling to see how we step up.
Yeah, and I think it is really interesting to highlight because, Craig, you and I met each other a number of months back, I think almost a year ago to the date.
Yes.
And we connected at We Day in New York, and it was just incredible to see the energy and the excitement of the children that had done this kind of year-long service project, and the big payoff of that, of being at the Barclays Center and getting to see celebrities in person. So it's nice to be able to continue to be able to serve those children and be able to acknowledge all of the hard work that they've done. Love to hear a little bit more about the event, if you could share some details as to what that might look like.
Absolutely. So here's, again, I want to really make this tangible for those who are watching, because I know they're asking, how can this connect to their own life? So one of the things we're arranging for different regions across America are regional end of year celebrations. The class of 2020, for the parents who are watching, or aunts or uncles or grandparents, the young people in their life missed graduation this year. So we're stepping up to create at the end of the year this touchstone for youth. Not in the traditional sense of graduation, obviously, but really celebrating the positivity, the service. That's our mission, service-based learning, to connect youth in the schools to make a difference at home and around the world. So we'll have special guests, and Selena Gomez and Lily Singh and Joe Jonas. And if you were like a 15-year-old listening to this, you would be losing your mind right now. If the parents, they may wonder who some of these names are, but they're great people that teenagers love. People who've been involved with us in the past, like Neil Patrick Harris and Demi Lovato, and people from Oprah to others. So just extraordinary individuals who have leaned in to share their voice, share their inspiration. So we'll be hosting these digital celebrations, and then we'll be broadcasting prime time on ABC, a national broadcast to celebrate. We appreciate that partnership with them. So again, allow me to emphasize for those who are listening, Monday to Friday, into their family inbox, a lesson plan, turnkey, simple for every day. Number two, tune in and watch live 1 hour of educational content, inspirational, educational for kids, mental health resources, lesson plans for the teachers who are listening, and the end of year celebration, all around positivity and service and making a difference these days. At home, so many causes need us all to lean in, and this is the opportunity to make that impact, and we want to help support youth on that journey.
Yeah, and you've been incredibly supportive on a number of different levels. We're really grateful for actually all the support that we get from we specifically.
Oh, and to you.
Yeah, and we're
Thank you.
able to surface a lot of the good resources that you share with us on charitynavigator.org. It's knowing that we're in a time where there's kind of extreme mental stress, being able to provide tips for people for kind of self-care and being able to navigate through this. So proud to feature that in our blog, and we'll continue to do so, especially as we're getting into Mental Health Awareness Month. Craig, in a couple days, we have Giving Tuesday now. So many people that are watching right now may be familiar with Giving Tuesday, which is typically this day of giving back around the holiday season where typically it's Thanksgiving, then Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and having a day of like, okay, let's change things from the commercialism and actually help those that are helping others. What was your reaction when you heard about this, and what plans does We Charity have at this point?
Thanks for asking. We have some plans tied to this celebration on Tuesday to really encourage young people to give back in a great way, both through giving, those who are able on a monetary level, but especially through volunteerism, to really encourage those who are able to give no matter what they may have, no matter their abilities. So for example, we have programs where young people are doing peer-to-peer mentorship, and they're doing a tutoring for youth who are outside of the traditional learning environment. We've got programs where youth can do digital support on well-being for people who are maybe struggling a little bit at this time, or connecting with seniors. So creating these support systems in place. And we have an incredible team, and this is where we're really lucky around the service learning component, an incredible team to support young people, no matter their cause, how they want to make a difference. So tune in, especially on the We Schools at home resources. We'll be broadcasting that. We'll have special celebrity guests on Tuesday. We'll have lesson plans, all of it around how young people can make a difference. Simple, easy, turnkey. And I think this is so important, not only when it comes to giving, but as an organization right now that's leaning in so deeply with youth mental health, this is critical for youth mental health at this time, to have a sense of agency and control and how they can make a positive impact. So we're really grateful. We know that Charity Navigator has actually really leaned in to create this second Giving Tuesday, in essence, in the year's calendar. And so on behalf of nonprofits, thank you. And on behalf of those who are watching, with humility, how people often say, call your grandmother. She really loves to hear from you. This is where I'd say, call your favorite charity. They really, really would love to hear from you. It's a tough time for charities. And we are aware that it's a tough time for others out there. So we don't want to push, we don't want to be presumptuous. So this is an opportunity for those who are able to reach out to their favorite charity, to open the conversation and to see what's possible.
Yeah, thanks for saying that too, Craig, because we recently ran a study with Reuters and we are pretty surprised with the results that we got back. We're seeing 83% of organizations at this point are reporting that they are suffering financially. And then the decrease in giving that they're expecting over these next couple of months is about 38% on average. So, we're certainly encouraging those folks to give if possible. There's the old adage of give till it hurts. I'm kind of turning that around and saying like give till it feels good.
Yes.
I think it's the mantra of that we're all in this together and seeing how you can help folks. And thank you for highlighting, both kind of the monetary aspect as well as some of the virtual volunteering opportunities, because you have folks who are at home and maybe they're going a little stir crazy and they want ways to help others. So certainly highlighting good ways to do that is important.
Well, and if I could follow on that, and ways that people can make a difference, if I can just plug a few more non-monetary ways that people can make a difference, is, for example, we have a program right now where we are supporting young social entrepreneurs. So under 35, they have a business idea of how they want to change the world to be better. And we're welcoming an amazing number of resources right now from professional service firms and from companies who have slack in the system. So they're keeping their workers on the payroll. They're doing all that they can. They're doing their best. They don't have the money to write a check to charities, but those workers on the payroll often aren't at peak capacity. So helping charities out with taxes, with web design, in-kind professional services and consulting, you name it. All of that is extraordinarily helpful to make a difference. And here's one other plug, if I can put it out there. Again, as we support these young social entrepreneurs, I believe that some people will struggle to write a check this year at their foundation. For those who are fortunate to have a family foundation or who have investments, or maybe just generally they can't dip further into the principal amount, and therefore they may not be giving. Stocks may not be rising this year, so they may not be giving for the capital gains. So I would challenge them to look at social impact investing, so a way that they can both protect their principal and also achieve an impact at the same time. So getting a little creative. So there is always the need to give, and I want to make sure these do not stop people from giving. The conventional donations are so critically necessary. But when you go to Charity Navigator, you not only see conventional charities, but for example, we have a social enterprise division, and there are others out there, whether it's Goodwill, that also has kind of an income model built into them. There are a lot of groups that produce goods and services. So charities and social enterprises create really interesting models. So as people look at how they can do good, in-kind support, professional services from their companies, investments in social entrepreneurs, there's a lot of ways that without having to dip deep into the financial pocket, you can still give a high impact to causes.
Yeah, and I appreciate you highlighting that, in that, Charity Navigator has historically looked at just two kind of areas. So we're looking at financial health and accountability and transparency. And what's really kind of aligned nicely with the current situation is that we know that the financials of organizations are going to be highly impacted. Now, we won't see the results of that for a year to come until those tax forms start to arrive. And we've certainly reached out to organizations to say, hey, we want you to take a people first approach here. We know that you're going based off of the metrics that Charity Navigator has laid out, but we want you to be aware that, we're going to be adaptive and make sure that we're being fair for that, and to make sure that you're taking care of your people as much as you possibly can. But it's all happening really nicely with a new system that we're planning on rolling out. We have a couple blogs on this, and we actually just finished a fundraising campaign against this as well, where we're looking from scaling from 9,000 organizations, so the world's most kind of well-known and biggest charities, to some smaller agencies as well. So that way it's not a strike against the food bank that's down the street, or the animal shelter that's in your neighborhood. So you can feel good about supporting them as well, knowing that Charity Navigator has given a stamp of approval.
I love that. Well, and at these times, if I can be shameless in saying how incredibly important it is with groups like Charity Navigator, because we're seeing a lot of well-intentioned causes emerge. And I'll never forget, Oprah Winfrey did a show and supported our work, was very gracious. And she had this phrase that she said, and it stuck with me ever since. She said, "It is easy to do good in this world. It is hard to do it well." And so we need those vetting and those seals of approvals, particularly now when people want to do good and they're looking for how to make sure that dollar, at a time where dollars are so scarce, can have the greatest possible impact in the greatest number of lives.
Yeah, and then that's our whole mission, is to try to make it to be easier for all, and just equip philanthropists of all sizes with all of the information so they can do so. But what I wanted to underline is that, those are the areas that we've historically looked at, and we're really at a turning point where, yes, we're going to scale up on the number of organizations that we evaluate, but we're also going to start rolling in other important indicators of nonprofit effectiveness. So, as important as financials are, as important as governance are, you being a nonprofit leader, as best as anybody that there are a lot of other areas to make an effective nonprofit. So this system will give us the ability to do that. So I thought that there was a really nice tie between what you had shared as to, hey, we were seeing all this kind of innovation and kind of social good and all these different ways to help, and how that's connected to the direction that we're headed. So I think that there's a nice alignment with this sector and some of the trends that we'll see this year and where Charity Navigator is headed.
Well, I appreciate you leaning in on that, because I think that the truth of the matter is what we're talking about right now is going to not only, there could be a vaccine tomorrow, frankly, and the economic impacts of this, when you're talking about, the tens of millions of people unemployed at home, we see young people displaced with the anxiety and the stress and the trauma of this on the global level. Every single country in sub-Saharan Africa being pushed under to a recession. This is unprecedented globally. This will not snap back quickly. We will need Charity Navigator, we'll need companies, we'll need foundations, we'll need individuals to lean in and be as innovative as possible, with as many models as possible, because it's not about the vaccine. Of course, it's about the vaccine. Don't get me wrong. It's about the vaccine, but it's not about the vaccine. Because even once the vaccine exists, it's everything that follows to try to help repair the lives and the damage that this has caused. And I think people need to take that long-term horizon to understand the depth of what has taken place will take much longer than the stock market has bounced back. This is the number of lives that this has impacted. We see it with kids who we know, again, unless we flatten the curve of mental health now, we will see a lifetime that they will be undoing trauma and anxiety. And the reality, we know the impacts of this can be scarring on financial, on people, on developing countries, on hunger. So to have that type of innovative approach and the willingness to lean in now when it really matters, thank you, and so important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's why we're being so encouraging of people giving now if they can, in that, nonprofits like yourself really are the support net of society. And there's only so much that a stimulus check can do or the government can do, is that there's so many social services and other services that are so incredibly impactful on the lives of millions and millions of people. So thank you for that. And really appreciate this, Craig. I know that when we initially connected, I said, hey, let's jump on Facebook Live for like 7 minutes, but just had such a good, engaging conversation. I really appreciate this. And
I appreciate, Kevin, you taking the time to highlight different nonprofits. Appreciate Charity Navigators. Where I love what we've had the chance to do together is to create resources through our partnership, especially for young people, for them to realize that charity, it's not just sometimes we see the celebrities and the wealthy titans, but I appreciate the fact that you've highlighted so many of those great youth initiatives we've been creating together, and youth resources, and particularly at this time when young people can make an impact. So, thank you for the support. Thank you for the transparency that you bring to the sector, and to all the families who are looking. I hope that they'll continue to find causes, whether it be on the Giving Tuesday, but throughout the year on Charity Navigator. And if we.org can be helpful with the free resources on mental health and global resources, we're thrilled to provide those to everyone who's watching.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. And we're going to be continuing to have conversations just like this. So actually in a couple short hours, I'll be connecting with Hope for Haiti on their Instagram Live. We'll then be hosting them on Monday. And on Tuesday, we actually have our president and CEO, Michael Thatcher, who's going to be connecting with Giving Tuesday themselves to talk a little bit about the day and how folks can get involved. So thank you for being the first of the series, Craig. I really appreciate this.
Our honor. Thank you, Kevin.
Great. Thank you for everybody for listening. Bye-bye.